Open session. We were talking about the PCFs for the assessor's office. We have a request for signature from the assessor's office. We do not have approval from the finance committee. What's the pleasure of the board?
Can I ask a question?
Is it relative to this?
Yeah, are we doing a wage rate class policy plan?
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't that,
We are doing a wage rate classification plan. It's in process. I don't know when it's going to be available, but yes, we are. We have, and I'm just doing this so that everybody at home can understand, we have basically an application to increase the salary of the assessor, and we do not have approval of the finance committee. So, I would suggest we table this.
Right, I think so, I agree, and move to when we get the rates to the finance committee. I don't,
I'll grab your microphone and bring it closer.
Second, because you just tabled it.
You got, I recommend, you need to make a motion. You move to table this?
Move to table.
Do I get a second?
I guess I'll second it. I'd like to,
Well, now we have discussion.
correct. I'll go back. I would like to talk to the assessors to see if they have another plan. Let me go back and talk to them next meeting, and then I'll come back here.
So then, let's table this and you go back to them.
Right.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Yeah, look at the PCF and then we got it. Heather?
So we're on the year-end line item transfers, round 2. Vicki was unable to be here this evening, so she asked me to make sure everyone had copies, and I will go through what I have. If there's any questions, I will do my best to answer. Finance Committee also is required to approve. They've approved the last round this evening, and they've also approved the second round this evening as well. So everyone has a copy in their folder of the line item transfers. Those orange folders, Charlie, I think I took yours out and put it on your desk.
Oh,
And Jim, do you have yours?
Yes.
I was
Okay.
expecting this long list.
All right, so essentially what she does is she breaks it down, the line items that are going to likely be running low, and the items that are hopefully related in some source where the funds are going to come from, and then she gives a little explanation at the bottom. So the first one that is an overdrawn account is the elementary school, and this isn't so much overdrawn as it is need to do this. We currently, at the end of the year, predict to have $13,218.77 left in vocational school tuition. As you may recall, vocational school tuition, along with charter school choice in the elementary, make up net school spending. And at the end of the day, since we budget pretty much at 100% exact, in order to not be under net school spending at the end of the fiscal year, any money that is left in the balance of the account for vocational tuition needs to be transferred to the elementary school in order to keep the fundings there. Otherwise, what would happen? The funds would run to free cash, which seems like a great idea, except net school spending would then be under by approximately $13,788, and we would have more of an issue next year. Any questions on that one?
No.
Okay, the next one that is an overdrawn account is, according to the fire chief, he believes that the EMT standby account will be under by about $2,500, and the proposed take from would be the EMT wages in the same amount. All good on that one?
Yeah.
Okay. The next one is the town clerk expenses, expected to be under by $1,000. Town clerk's requesting transfer for year-end supplies and organizational board for the front hallway. When you open the doors, papers fly around, and she'd like to take that from the election expenses that were unutilized. The next line is Memorial Day, and it says here, to pay for cemetery flowers and custodial staff for assembly at the Norris School. And these funds are proposed to be taken from the Veterans Benefits line.
Question.
Answer.
I saw on an email that last year's bill for flowers wasn't paid. I've never seen that bill. Have your office seen that bill?
No.
Okay. Well, I did see the bill, and I brought it here. And I don't know what happened to it. I misplaced it. They don't have it upstairs, but we are going to be paying for it, and all the flowers for last year and this year are going to be paid for.
Okay, so that's
It's all set. It's okay.
because at the ceremony, the veterans agent came to me and was very concerned about being spoken to, for a
Right.
polite way of saying it, by a lot of individuals, and was asking me, and I was about ready to take some money out of my wallet and just give it to him, because I couldn't figure out what went wrong with this.
No, it's good. It's all set.
Okay, very good.
The next item is road machinery expenses, which we predict will be under by about $10,000. And we're going to supplement with general highway expenses. So from general highway, it will transfer over to road machinery. This is to cover anticipated expense till year end. There were some unexpected repairs to equipment. Questions?
Normal.
That's all I have.
Okay.
With the equipment repair, what about the roller that caught fire this past year?
Insurance.
Please?
The roller and the trailer
Thank
for
you,
the
Mr.
roller, Randall Kemp, Southampton Highway Superintendent. The roller and trailer will be coming out of Chapter 90 funds. They have been applied for and accepted.
Very good. Thank you. I guess that's it,
We
Heather.
need a motion to approve.
Jim, want to make a motion to approve?
So moved.
Jackie?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Thank you.
I see discussion with the fire chief. Fire chief's not here yet.
I don't know if you have 2B, Charlie, the intersection concerns.
I do not. I'm aware of them.
Okay, that's where I stuck it.
All right, so intersection concerns. Mr. Kemp, would you mind coming up as the highway department? We can discuss the Pleasant Street, Gun Road, and others.
All right. So we've received 2 formal complaints, one regarding Pleasant Street at Gunn, and one at the intersection of Wolcott and Rattle Hill. Basically, both of them are similar in that residents are concerned that people are ignoring the current traffic controls and feel additional traffic controls will somehow make the situation better.
So Pleasant Street and Gun Road intersection, to my memory, has stop signs for Gun Road.
It is a 4-way intersection. There are stop signs on Gun Road. Pleasant Street is a through street.
Has our police department made any statements to you relative to the intersection? Did the police department make any comments or suggestions relative to Pleasant Street and Gun Road? Has there been any concerns from the police
I
department?
believe they received a complaint from the same party that contacted me. And I think the chief may have said he had heard additional ones. I don't know if they were specific or anecdotal. My opinion is that Well, let me back up. I forwarded some, this is the Bible of traffic controls. And Massachusetts has adopted the four-way stop requirements from this book. And in reading them, I don't feel that that intersection warrants the engineering study required to change the current traffic controls. That is my opinion.
Can you say that one more time? I know, I'm sorry. Couldn't get that in the notes.
The current traffic controls that are there, I feel, are sufficient, and the few complaints we have do not warrant money expended on a traffic study.
Is the board interested in tabling this discussion, given the fact that we only have one complaint on it?
Well, or do we have a history of any accidents? I mean, is there,
I don't believe we have accident data for that, and that's one of the things that the manual requests is there should be a compelling reason to change the existing traffic controls,
Right,
the traffic patterns.
doesn't the state have to have a certain amount of accidents in order to even consider putting a light there?
I believe there are tables in here, but this is
Yeah.
This is
really
Pleasant Street and
long.
Gun Road.
Right, I read the letter. It was a
Wolcott
person,
Road,
Well, let's finish with...
okay, Gun Road and Pleasant.
right, it was a gentleman on a bicycle, and somebody went through the light and almost hit him, if I remember
Went
correctly.
Through the stop sign.
Yes, I mean, thank you, the stop sign, if I remember the letter. I mean, I know that we have a flashing stop sign on Gun Road and Line Street and County Road.
that's more like
Yeah.
East Street, I think.
I mean, East Street,
County.
thank you.
East Street,
East Street,
County.
yeah.
We have them at Glendale and Pomeroy Meadow.
Right.
Is that it? There may be another set somewhere.
How much do those cost?
Well, the upfront cost is several thousand, and we've been replacing batteries recently because the batteries are good for maybe 3 to 5 years.
How much are those?
The batteries were, I think we got 3. I believe it was 300. I hate giving out numbers if I'm not positive, and I don't have it in front of me. They're
Right,
pricey.
yeah,
I guess my point is, the take-home message is, there is a traffic control there that the public is ignoring.
yeah.
It's not a fault of the actual control or traffic pattern, it's enforcement of
So,
the
so
traffic
what
pattern.
we should theoretically be doing is asking the police department to step up monitoring that area.
In my opinion.
That makes more sense at this time, seeing that we don't have any accident data. I don't recall, I live a half a mile from there, and I don't recall many accidents, if any. So I think
Make a motion?
tabling it would be a reasonable thing with the side of maybe notifying the police department. They, we have a complaint in this area, maybe they can, keep an eye on it.
Is that your motion?
That's my motion.
Second,
All in favor?
I,
Okay, next intersection is Rattle Hill and Wolcott Road.
I originally thought I had the same opinion of this one, that I didn't think it warranted an engineering study. However, reading this book, which is great reading, by the way, I believe Wolcott Road may have, in the past, been a through street, and Rattle Hill was an intersection off of that. And maybe that is why there is a yield at Rattle Hill. It seems that now Rattle Hill to Wolcott is the through street, as Wolcott above Rattle Hill is a dead-end road. Did everybody follow that? Do you know the road at all? Okay. They used to go over
A long time ago.
Yeah, but that,
So, do we spend money on it? You tell me.
well, my personal feeling is because it's a road that's traversed by the kids going to the high schools, as well as the kids going to the grammar schools, yes, I think we should do a study on that.
I would be happy to look into that.
But does that the motion of the board?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye,
Aye.
Very good.
Thank you.
thank you.
Chief, looks like, once I get done with the charter contract, you're next.
Oh, okay.
You want to be next after that, or you want to be in front of it?
Whatever you like. I mean, actually, if you're part of it, just go there, visit someone else.
Well, then, let's put... That's all right. If I don't harass the chief once in a while, he doesn't feel appreciated.
Keep him on his toes, right?
Yeah, come to expect it. It's all part of it. All fun. So, staffing coverages and fire study?
Yes, first thing is staffing. Obviously, the town override didn't pass. With that, second shift wasn't funded. With that, becomes a question of how are we going to take and have adequate coverage for second, third shift areas.
Yeah.
So we need to understand what needs to happen and what we need to do to support you to make this happen,
Sure.
given the limited funding we have available.
Yep. Perfectly understandable, absolutely. I mean, historically, we've always had the problem of, nighttime staffing going from 6 to 6 with inherent gaps at the end of day shift and at the beginning of day shift, just prior to day shift. We'd stopgap those when we'd gotten the stuff from the state by doing a double standby pay, which basically gives $100 for somebody to be available all night long for 15 hours. And that did a great job. We actually have 100% coverage using that model. But it was only funded through extra money that I'd had in my wage account, and that ends at the end of June. So if we want to continue to have the 100% coverage, I feel as though we really need to fund the second shift, the standby pay with another $35,000 approximately. $35,300 would be my request.
Can I just make a statement here? I don't want you to lead people the wrong way. When you say 100% coverage, we're not talking about 100% coverage of paramedic service.
That's completely true.
I
That's a
just want
good
to make
point.
sure that we're,
Yeah, because honestly, this is just, for the most part, it's basic coverage. And it's nighttime response, which is an automatic 7-minute delay, just in responding to the station.
Right.
So it's not the second shift. We
Correct.
don't have the paramedic coverage, nor do we have the immediate response right from the station. It's an important point. Thank you.
So you have a shortfall of $30,000 walking into your budget.
Yeah, in order to continue with the success that we've had, that's the case.
I understand that this was not funded due to the expectations of the override question that we had. Now that that didn't pass, now this wasn't funded even to that level.
That's
So that's
correct.
the problem we're up against, I believe.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
problem.
I thought it was closer to 35,000.
It is closer. It's 35,300.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if you want to try and look for free cash when that becomes available, and that's I don't know what the options are. I guess
Here-
I'm looking for your help there.
Here's the risk. If we encouraged you to maintain staffing as it is with the 30, okay,
Yep,
you're going to start running into negative numbers.
by the end of the year.
We don't know what free cash is going to bring.
Yep,
So if we tell you to do this, we are running a risk that there won't be enough free cash. My suspicions are there will be, but then we run the risk of, will the town transfer it at town meeting to support your budget? If they do not, then you are going to basically be looking at double cutting your budget after October. Because you'll have July, August, September, October, you'll have 4 months in that you're paying at that level. If you don't get the funding, then you got basically 8 months that you got to make that up. which means even less service.
Yeah, I don't know how that would function. I mean, certainly, if it wasn't funded at a town meeting, for whatever reasons, for that just additional basic standby coverage, it would be a challenge to have nighttime response as effectively as we have it now. Like you said, to double cut it would just about decimate it. And folks, aren't going to work for free, and
No, and nobody's expecting them to.
Yeah, yeah,
The
certainly.
other side of this is, what about the ambulance funding that's coming in for services? We tap into that for new ambulances and equipment and stuff. Would there be enough money to take that out if there's no free cash available?
I don't have the answer to that. It would probably be best asked of, town accountant to see where those accounts stand. If that was an option, I'm certainly open to any option that would successfully fund what we need.
Jackie, not to put you on the spot, but what do you think?
I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
We haven't, people haven't agreed, then I don't know where to.
I think in some ways, with the state had issued us a violation by not having that nighttime coverage, and really now we're providing that nighttime coverage. The challenge is certainly how to pay for it. I guess it would make the most sense to me is to move forward, because everything that I've heard back from the town, whether it be positive or negative, is that they'd like Southampton ambulance to be there, and it's really the only way to get the Southampton ambulance there is to find additional funding. So I guess I would hope that it would be a successful, meeting in October. And then, there's no guarantees in life, and I don't know
Yeah.
how to...
Well, I think it's very important to have, at minimum, basic coverage.
Yes.
At minimum. I mean, I would like to see paramedic a second shift, but we haven't gotten there yet, and we're still trying. But at minimum, we have to keep basic service alive. We can't kill that, so I think we have to continue with that at minimum.
I'd like to ask Heather if she has any thoughts, seeing she sees the picture as it runs.
Are we talking about currently just staffing coverage?
Yeah, basically what it comes down to is he's got a shortfall of about $35,000 for the entire year.
For FY17?
Yeah. If we encourage him to maintain it at this level, only option is going to either be taking it out of free cash when that becomes available, or looking at if we can transfer money out of the ambulance account when that becomes available.
So I'm not going to have a very popular opinion on this one. So my opinion would essentially be to look at every single thing and single cent that's spent. So the first thing I would say is, relating to the study piece, which we haven't got to yet, is to go back and look at what our organizational chart is for that department. What positions do we have? What positions do we need? What ways can we encourage people to work more steadily, take on more, maybe there's a way to get someone that every other Tuesday, that's their shift or what have you. And even with the on-call coverage, do we need 30-something people to cover it, or is there a way to get less people to cover the same amount, so we reduce that piece? The second thing you go in to look at is you want to make sure we're paying people, but we also need to make sure that we're not expending more than our means, but we're still getting people to come. So sometimes it's one of those personnel retention issues, which we're going to run into as a town as well, and we already have in a certain extent. So the question becomes, what can we afford to pay people, and what can we also provide people that might be a different benefit that encourages them to come? Some people just want to work in an enjoyable environment, have opportunities to learn, what have you. So I think there are ways to provide the service currently as it is today without necessarily running into the negative, provided that we sit there and we look at things and we really look at them constructively. One of the concerns I've had this year with this department is a lot of times funds will be expended higher, so there'll be constant raises, or someone will get an additional increase, or there'll be additional incentives that need to be paid so people can continue to run the staff. I think the first thing that needs to be controlled and looked at is, what are we really paying? What are the 3 different levels or whatever? There is a current fee structure for that department, but the concern I have is there's like 10 different levels, 10 different steps, several different bodies involved and everything else. It needs to be a lot more condensed than that. And I don't know if such a thing exists. Maybe I'm just living in la la land and I like things to be simple, black and white, easy to interpret. But I think the first thing we do before we look at selling anything to anybody, before we look at getting any more support from the town, we have to get a hold of this and really look at what we're doing with this plan, where we're going, how we're going to get there. You know, what staffing do we need? How do we get the right staffing, and how do we do it at, yes, a somewhat competitive level to other communities, but more so, how do we get people to stay, and how do we get the shifts to be filled?
Can I speak a little bit to that?
Yes.
Okay. You just spent $25,000 for a study to be done in the fire department. Nowhere in that study did it say that we were wasting funds by overpaying people or doing anything outside of what every department does in regards to duties. So I guess I disagree that the money, the breakdown of money, we got 40 part-time people. We're trying to perform the functions of a full-time department. I think as the study that we just spent $25,000 to do states is that it's managed well. We have a quality, high quality of service. It doesn't say anything about, you know, funds being used in ways that could be cut back. That's all your opinion, and I appreciate that. But I believe the department is run effectively, as the report said, efficiently, as the report said, and is a high quality of service, as the report said. And I feel as though anyone that would like to sit and look at how it's managed or what the consultant had looked at to get that conclusion would be, I'd be more than happy to show that to anyone. I run a very open department, and I'd be happy to sit with anyone if they had questions in regards to it. I think that we really need to look at alternative funding as we just discussed previously.
Well, I don't see us solving this tonight because I think it needs a lot more. And Jim, you've ended up being the fire department liaison. Do you think by the next selectmen's meeting, it'll still be in June, you two gentlemen can sit down and try to trim this out, flush it out, and give something that this board can at least move forward with?
Absolutely, I'm going to sit down. I mean, I sat down last Wednesday for about an hour and a half, and we're planning again tomorrow morning. I'm just trying to understand the operations of the fire department at this point, and tomorrow we're going to start to get into, you know, a little bit more depth. Is it true that we did not fund the same level? The $35,000 was cut out of his budget? Or am I on the right page with this?
$35,000 to my,
We were hoping that the override went through, so we lowered it?
no, we never lowered.
Okay, that's what I'm asking.
What happened was, is he had surplus money that came in because of personnel that left, so he had periods of time that weren't staffed. That led him to having extra money. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, that's true. And the state had come in and said, you know, there's gaps in your coverage, which we knew. And so a way that I saw to stop gaps of the coverage, to have full coverage, was to utilize some of the extra money that was in the budget to fund the position, but I only had my budget until the end of this fiscal year.
Okay, I understand.
So there was never any additional money, but there
Okay.
was never any money taken away either. That's the dilemma of this thing. I actually like the fact that you're now the liaison to this, because it's a fresh set of eyes to look at this thing. You have the heritage of knowing what went on in the past, so you have a working knowledge of it. So I think this is going to be very refreshing to watch you two gentlemen work this out.
I think that's a great idea. I think Jim's got a, great business sense. I think, between that and what the report looked at, we can sit down with all that information, and if there's ways that we could, cut costs that make sense, I'm completely open to that, and look forward to it.
So I would entertain a motion that we continue this to the next selectmen's meeting.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable. We should be able to meet at least a couple more times by then.
Sure.
So moved.
So you made the motion.
No, I didn't make the motion. You made the motion.
She made the motion. I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, now let's get into this meat and potatoes of the fire department and the report.
Okay.
The report seems to indicate trimming down to the department.
Trimming down the apartment and some of the, like the apparatus. I mean, for many years, since 2010, we've gotten a new engine that came in online. And since that engine had come into the department, for the last 7 years, we've been operating with 3 engines. One of them is our oldest is a 1988. It's an old, 4-wheel drive, doesn't really owe us anything. We don't use it as a frontline piece, but it's ideally suited for, brush fires and getting water out to places where a normal engine doesn't get as easily. But it's older, and it certainly, there was no truck replacement schedule prior to my arrival 3 years ago. One of the first things I did is I took the equipment that we had and I put it all to a truck replacement schedule, which did include replacing engines every 30 years and included 3 engines. I think the report it makes a good point. I think if we utilized our engines better, we could reduce the fleet to 2 engines. I think that's something that we could accommodate pretty easily. Our engines are close in age now, which is a little bit unfortunate. So in 30 years from now, we're going to have a little trouble. We're going to have to try and make an engine go longer, type of thing. But it's certainly doable. We could make the 2 engines function. We'd have to do a little bit of updating to them. There's some equipment that is lacking to make both engines fully function. We're probably looking at between $10,000 and $15,000 per engine to bring it up with equipment so that they both could function as an engine complete without the need for a 3rd engine. But I certainly think it's doable. It's probably a prudent direction to go. It would take out a 3rd engine at $400,000 replacement costs. So I think that's a good idea, and I think it's a smart move for the town and good direction for the department. So I think that's one of the recommendations that he'd made, and I agree with. Any questions in regards to that 3rd engine? Right now we have our engine 2, which is really mothballed, and it kind of leads into the next issue, which he had said reducing down to 1 station. Our Station 2 has this mothballed engine in it, and we also use it to store the tanker. Sometimes the brush truck, we exchange our trucks depending on time of year and what we're trying to protect for. And Station 2 has always been heated. I think that one of his other recommendations was to cut back to 1 station. I think that that too is an attainable goal. Makes good sense in our current financial times to try and cut where we can. I think in that light we could probably not mothball, but set whatever equipment goes down to Station 2 for the winter. We could empty it from water and not pay for heat at that location. Electricity is minimal because it's just lights occasionally when you go down there. So in Station 2, if we turned off the heat, if we sell the equipment that's down there that we're not using, I think that we could move towards mothballing Station 2, getting rid of equipment. We could perhaps utilize some of the funds from that to update the engines that we have is a possibility. Some of the other report points of information were our brush truck is quite old, 35 years old. We're going to have to look at a brush truck sometime in the very near future. It's been on the agenda for capital gains for a couple of years since I've been here. The tanker is another one that we need to look at, whether we update. Probably the biggest issue we have with our tanker, although it's a 86, it doesn't have a lot of mileage. We don't own it as it comes from the state as surplus property. The challenge with the tanker is it does need some work, and it's also a difficult truck to drive in that it's a manual transmission.
Is there a possibility, seeing it's surplus from the state, of renegotiating with the Commonwealth and getting a newer vehicle?
I've certainly talked to District 10 and the folks that are in charge there, and I've already put feelers out, so if they come across anything that would accommodate us better, perhaps newer or better accommodate us in regards to a tanker, I've been a squeaky wheel, and hopefully
Yeah.
something will come from that.
And the capital committee is well aware of the fact that you're looking for a brush truck.
Yep,
The priorities were the police cruisers, which both have been funded now,
Yep.
and the highway truck, which has been funded now. So we don't know what free cash is going to bring this year, but I would submit again.
yep. I think that's a great idea. I think that there's still, potential for some of the federal grants for a tanker. I think, that's, there again, there's not a lot of money anywhere. I think if we can utilize some of those grants, that would be ideal, so I'll continue to put in for those. I had a focus for ambulance for that, and have been paring it down just to the size of the community, and I would still probably put in for an ambulance-related expenditure for the grants this year, but pare it down quite a bit to maybe a $40,000 or a $50,000 grant, hopefully with some success. I've had success in the past with them. I might have been a little ambitious with what I'd put in for requests for, given the size of the community. But I think something around that size dollar amount would be a good move for this year, and then a tanker might be something that we could put in for next year. So I think there's some possibilities for a tanker. The tanker's a bigger ticket item. The other alternatives, which I've looked into a little bit, is something used that was designed, had more of the components that we're looking for, and would be a considerable cost savings over a new piece of equipment. So there's a few alternatives that we can look at for down the road.
Are you going to be able to put together a surplus property list for the board to review? in
Sure.
Next, I don't know, 2-3 months?
Sure?
That'll give us an idea of what we're doing with the Bleemer Road Station.
Yeah. 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 I mean, there's surplus property that the department owns, which is not tremendous. And then there's some surplus property that is owned by the state. Some of it becomes our possession, some of it has to go back to the state. So I'll do a breakdown.
But, and I'm just thinking, it's like you have under storage a water cannon.
I'm sorry, you have what?
You have a water cannon in storage,
A water cannon?
yeah, a 4-inch cannon. It's in the old barn down there.
Yeah, yeah, it's an old deck gun. It's a,
You call it a deck gun.
it's a, yeah, okay.
What do you
okay.
want,
Yeah, it takes, 3 men and a boy to move it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a howitzer, so there we go.
It probably has a scrap value. It doesn't have a value for using on a truck, but it probably does have some scrap value, and we could certainly look into that.
That's what I'm saying, there's certain things around that they're just sitting there that, you're never gonna,
Yeah, the other thought I guess I had in the back of my mind is just because I've done a lot with historic in the past, was if we ever built a new station, it could make a nice decorative piece, either outside or inside. And it does, scrap value, it's not worth a lot of money, so, but I'd be up for selling it. I mean, I have no
Don't put it in the
attachments to it.
attic. Don't put it in the attic of the current fire station.
I would not trust it in the attic of the current fire station. Be more likely to see it on top of one of the trucks if I did that.
So how does this decommissioning the Bleemer Road Station affect the fire rating for the town, especially in ponds? It doesn't
Now,
affect it at
when
all?
when we did the public safety complex issue, we went to the fire raiders. They had absolutely no interest in that fire station. They were focused on this station and where the location of this station would be.
Yeah. Their concerns for what they call the ISO for the insurance stuff is more like where you have people, where you have engines that they can respond with from, that kind of thing. And so that station Station 2 didn't calculate in very high, just because it doesn't hold tremendous equipment, nor does it get people aren't manned down
Staff,
there.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I was just curious.
Yeah, yeah, sure, absolutely.
So, yeah, we'll have to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the report did a good job. I mean, I think that, he looked at a few things. It was a little disappointing his presentation. Just reading the newspaper articles, I think that, he was suggesting some things. It wasn't clear that he was behind for a second shift. One of the emails that I had written him and sent him the newspaper clipping, and he'd written back, I forwarded that forwarded email to the select board. And he was, in that email, he said he was in support of a second shift. And it's too bad that that wasn't clearer when he did his presentation. I thought it was good that, he really cleared up, as far as the quality of service that we receive here in Southampton is high-quality service. I think there was, the management issues and how we utilize staff was some concerns that folks had, and it certainly validates everything that we're doing at the department. We've got a great group of men and women that really are, providing service 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We do not have any holes in our coverage whatsoever. This month alone, we've gone to Northampton with an ambulance. We helped out East Hampton the other day. Our turnout was tremendous. We had both an ambulance over in East Hampton and an engine company, and we had personnel at station for station coverage. And yes, it does cost money, and at some point, where do you cut back? Do you tell people not to come in? I think it's hard to plan for emergencies, and I think we just react the best we can, and I think the department has got a good group and doing a good job. So I think the report kind of says that also, and so I thought that was good.
Yeah, I think the biggest question will be what we're going to do with the Bloomer Road Station. I mean, are we going to keep it, shut it down,
Yeah,
not heat it? just
yeah.
use
My
it for storage?
suggestion would be to not heat it, keep it as a storage, because we still have equipment that we can't house here at Center Station.
So we just-
But if we just take the water out of it for the winter time, at least we're not paying for
What
heat
is
down
what is
there.
that, do you have that separate itemized number for that?
I could, it's all part of my,
curious.
yeah. I mean, it's easy enough to do just in my own separate line items, but as it is, it's rolled into my fire department expense account.
It won't be a huge amount of money, but...
No, it's not, yeah, because the doors don't really get opened, it's not a...
Much maintenance that goes on over there?
Honestly, I mean, there's so much maintenance that needs to be done. I mean, we have, holes where the birds are coming into the station, and there's a lot of money that could be spent on either station that we are not spending, just because there's not a lot of money available. So I think that's ongoing. So we don't spend much on the Center Station, nor do we spend hardly anything on the Bloomer Road Station.
I think the Bleemer Road Station's going to go dormant until we can figure out where we're going with the public safety complex.
Yeah.
And that's going to take a year or two before that,
Yeah, it's long-term.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Chief, thank you.
Absolutely.
You are recognized for doing a good job.
Yeah, appreciate
We
that.
understand the frustration, we understand the budget issues,
Yep.
but we'll work with you and see
Yeah,
where we
those are the
go.
challenges we all face, and like I say, what makes the difference is really a good group of men and women that are stepping up and doing the job. So, appreciate
Thank you.
that. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Charter.
Charter contract update. I'm about neck deep into that. I printed out one other copy if anybody wants it. I need one for myself. I guess you got copies of it.
Yeah, good.
All right. Basically, we're reviewing these contracts. The reds are basically concerns, let me see if I can find here exactly where we're going. There's not a lot of concerns here. If you look at the yellows that I put in, okay?
Yeah.
That's the comments that our attorney gave us relative to the contract. Under Section 2.3, level playing field, we need to adjust these statements better so that it reflects better that we have more competition going on. That's internal. That's nothing for the board to do. I just wanted to let you know that was happening. 4.2, insurance, and the indemnity clause is too narrow. provide only for indemnity of licensees' negligent acts. Again, that's something our attorney needs to push on more, that it's just not giving us enough protection. If you go to Section 6, service availability, we've been trying to get them to cut that down below 30 homes per mile. That's still in the new contract, and we're still arguing the point that we want to have it less than 30 houses, mostly because of the former road, Crooked Ledge Road area.
Right. Are they doing expansions at this time at all?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. When we go to Section 13, under PEG grants and that, PEG grant access channels, they're allowing us,
Yeah.
3 channels, not 1. Remember, this is a 10-year contract, so it could evolve, because we're trying to expand services with this. So you may end up with, and this is just hypothetical, but you could end up with 1 channel is government, 1 channel is sports and activity, and another one could be arts and culture. But we're trying to keep 3 channels available so that we can expand this as time goes on. As part of this, and I'll play into it in a minute, is expanding the role of the cable, what do you call it, the local broadcast. If you go to public education, governmental access, 13.4, what they're looking and agreeing to is giving the town of Southampton, the first year of signing the contract, $50,000 to go into the PEG account. PEG account buys this, the microphones, the cameras, all that kind of stuff. And 5 years down the road, another $50,000, because things will get outdated and they'll be evolving in that. Another thing they're agreeing to is the first year will be up to 3% coming in, rather than 1%. That will mean that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Heather, but right now, we're collecting somewhere around $30,000 for that, in that ballpark anyways,
Might even be less than that.
maybe less. So this should bounce it up somewhere around 60 to 70, maybe 80, which will give us more staff time, so that an individual like we have sitting in this room can go out to the schools and work with our schools, work with our library, do the sporting events, stuff like that.
Or the other departments as well, right?
Yep.
I mean,
Well, I'm going to get into that next. And then it's going to go up to 4% after 6
Yeah, I saw
years.
that.
And that's all because we're building out on this thing. Let's see. Okay, now we get into the actual pieces of this. We're also trying to get the cable company, and they're agreeing to most of this, to put a access at the library, just like we have in this room. So if there's an activity going on at the library, they can broadcast from the library.
Good.
Another site is going to be the Norris School, so that when we have the town meeting, or we have the parade, or anything, there's going to be access there. Okay, and we're trying to also break it out so school committee meetings can be sent out. Okay? And the final piece is to have this set up in this building on the second floor meeting room. So if the Board of Health, the Planning Board, the Water Commissioners, whoever else is meeting, there's another access point that, so that the townspeople can see what their boards are doing and have a better understanding of how the government's working.
Sounds good.
Okay?
Yeah, just to make sure the first floor is covered, I saw the note there.
It's because you can't see it in the...
Yeah.
You want this covered too? The other one I got to do is the school, which I think is kind of funny. We're, in a way that, okay, we're so focused on the cafeteria for coverage, but it's their library where the school committee meets. which means trying to get the cable company to put a live feed from both sites in the building. So that's my update. This has been going on now for 6, 7 months, still working on it. I still got to get together with the cable company to do the surveys of the buildings. And the contracts don't get signed until October, somewhere in there. But negotiating's going well. We're actually moving towards having a better package.
Good job, Charlie.
Ain't done yet, as they say. Next thing, restructuring the select board's agenda, open time for public, so on and so forth. I've been involved in many governmental meetings over the years, and there's two things that I'd like to bring up to you two members. I wish the rest of the board was here, but anyways. First, I would like to see open time for the public at the beginning of the meeting. That way, if someone has to come in and wants to talk to this board, they don't have to sit through all the other stuff that's going on until open time happens. So if you two don't mind, I'd like to change the agenda around that open time's at the beginning.
I don't really see a problem with that.
No, I don't either.
Make it a motion?
Yeah, what are the negatives? There is no negatives.
There is no, it's basically to accommodate the general public, so they can come in, they got an issue, they tell us what's going on. That does not imply that we're going to make a decision when they come in with an issue, but it at least allows them to get in front of their board.
I'm looking at the agenda right now, and I see that Heather does her town report, and then it's open time for the public in this particular agenda. And do you think that it would be good if there were people in the room, if they could hear her report and then speak? Because they might have something to speak about what she just said. You know, something they didn't know was going on. I'm just giving them an opportunity to know. She's briefing the public on what she's been up to and what's going on. And here's somebody sitting in the audience that might want to address what she just said. It has some questions.
The problem is, this is a board meeting, it's not a give and take conversation relative to what's going on. When anybody comes up and gives a report on a committee, it doesn't open it up to a debate of did the committee do what we wanted done or so on and so forth. So I would say no. I would rather see just open time. The general public gets the courtesy of being the first at the podium. They get to explain their concerns, and after that, so be it. If somebody comes in and hears Heather say something that they have a question about, depending on what the atmosphere is in here for the meeting, how much we have on the agenda, they could be recognized. But it will all depend on what's going on, and that's going to play into the second thing that I'm going to request. Would you follow me?
Yeah, let me ask this question. Has it been where it is, number 3, for quite a while? Is it pretty typical?
It's been that way, Jim, for a good year or so, perhaps even more. We've moved it a couple times at this point. So initially, it was proposed to be the first item, and there were residents who wished for it to actually be later or towards the middle or several different times during the meeting because they felt that there were things they wanted to respond to. And that's why it's bounced around a few times.
And I'm looking at the fact that this is not supposed to be set up to be a debate on report. If they're going to respond to a meeting that we're holding, then they should be a participant in that meeting, not coming back after the fact and talking about something because I think that Uncle George should have did this. And I've seen this before, and I've seen it burn up a lot of time that the board has other things to deal with. Trying to make it more efficient is what I'm trying to do.
I think that if we give them an opportunity, I'm not talking about, you know, changing anything that a citizen would bring up if you listen to her report or any other thing that we've discussed, but certainly giving them the time to speak to what's going on. I mean, I know we're not going to change anything, we can't at that point. They have to get on the agenda in order to do that. But still, I mean, I'd like to give them the opportunity to speak.
But they are getting an opportunity to speak. It's at the beginning of the meeting. And they're going to have the agenda, so they're going to know, I mean, they're going to at least roughly know what's going on.
Do you think we should wait one meeting? Let's get the full board. I mean, we're moving the agenda around, maybe
Yeah, I have no problem with
we
that.
should wait one meeting and then talk about it.
Everybody together, yes.
This
I
way,
agree.
we're all in the
One
same. I
for
don't
all,
want-
all for one?
Absolutely, I think that's a good idea.
I mean, if we'll give them, you know, hopefully next meeting, we may have a full board.
Okay.
That would be good.
Well, then let me move to the second thing.
Okay.
If you look in your packet, you will see a paragraph. Jackie, it looks like this. I don't know where it is.
Yeah, I don't see
Where's
it.
it from?
It's basically, I had Heather put it in, and
I didn't get it.
basically what it comes down to is, it's the rules of running the meeting.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Robert's rules. You're talking
Well, it's not
about.
Robert's rules, it's basically just a quick overview. I'll read it to you.
Very good.
Okay? All agendas are subject to change. Items requiring extensive discussion or prior research should be placed on a future agenda so that issues can be received appropriate actions. To have an item placed on the agenda, we ask that request be made to the Select Board office no later than the Wednesday prior to the meeting. And the reason is we're having so many of these things just dropped on us the day of the meeting that nobody has time to ferret out the information in that. Please leave the room if you need to converse with other members of the audience. This is something that would be read at the beginning of the meeting. Because we a lot of times have people having their own dialogues here while we're trying to hold a meeting. If you wish to speak during the meeting, please raise your hand in order to be recognized by the chair. Please state your name for the record before you begin to speak on an issue. That's why you see me prompting people at the podium, you know, because, yeah, I know who they are, but the general population doesn't know. And the final section is basically the Mass General Law that basically allows a governmental body to have somebody removed if they're disorderly. But it basically puts the playing field here, that, you know, somebody comes up to that podium at open time to the public and says that there's a severe problem with the pansies that have been planted over by Norris School. And I've done the research on this, and you're using 1010 fertilizer when you shouldn't be using it. That should be put on the agenda for the following selectmen's meeting, not become a discussion for the board for the next 20 minutes. Are you having fun with it?
I guess it's the pansy thing you can't get over.
Do you follow
Well, I
us?
think it's a good point for discussion. Again,
The pansies? All right,
I think the full board,
sure.
they may want to add some things to this. Who knows?
So do I hear a motion to table these things?
So moved.
Okay, put it on for the next board meeting?
Yeah, I'd like to,
That's
I'm
fine.
I'm not saying no. I'd like to.
No, no,
I'd like
I
to leave these in
understand.
for that. You know,
But,
if we even had 4 out of 5, I mean, 3 out
That'd
of
be cool.
5.
I mean, the reality of it is I think everybody needs to understand what the playing field is. And I think people lose that.
Right, but you brought up an interesting point. How many days ahead of the select board meetings should a person, or is it, what's standard now? You know, how many days ahead does a citizen have to inform you that they want something on the agenda?
Citizens don't often, it's not standard practice here that they would generally come and ask for something on the agenda. Generally, if we know there's an issue of something, we put it on. It's very uncommon for a citizen to ask for something to go on the agenda. But the problem that we run into, as Charlie, I think, already expressed, was that if, you know, Thursday, we're usually trying to get the agenda typed, and get it out to everyone for the weekend so you guys can review it, but also usually every crisis in the world that happens on Thursday, so we get those, plus trying to do the agenda, plus trying to get it out. So if people had a deadline to get things in, department heads, who sometimes will do that last minute, something will come up, usually they're the ones who would request something more at the last minute piece.
Just trying to make this run a little bit more smoothly. I mean, right now, we're after town meeting, everything's sort of quieting up and all the rest of that. But as soon as we start rolling into the fall, we're going to be.
That makes perfect sense, and I like the idea of it, but it would be nice, like I said, if we had a few more people.
No, I got no problem with that at all. Doesn't bother me. I'm just putting it in front of you guys,
Yeah.
you know? All right, I guess we'll move on now to contract signatures. Heather, would you like to elaborate?
Sure. So Charlie and I had a conversation on this, and I've had several conversations with Vicki as well. One of the problems we've run into, and I'm sure this is continuing from prior years, but is that sometimes department heads will sign contracts, whether it's the assessor's office signing a contract for reevaluation or additional consultant services, or I know last year we had an issue with purchasing a unit for one of the ambulances. Things don't always go through proper channels, and we're not just talking, rubber stamped or procedural, but there's certain things that we have to comply with procurement laws, and also making sure that the contracts that we get are legit. Some contracts we like to send to town council just to make sure we're in good place with them, but one of the issues we're really concerned about, or at least I'm really concerned about, is department heads signing contracts. So we did have a quick email that we sent out to town council, and their response was as follows. As a general matter, department heads don't have the authority to sign contracts unless authorized by town meeting. Our general bylaws, Article 3, Section 6 states, unless otherwise provided by the vote of town meeting, the Board of Selectmen or procurement officer designated pursuant to Chapter 30B is authorized to enter into any contract for the exercise of the town's corporate powers on such terms and conditions as are deemed appropriate. Notwithstanding the foregoing, the Select Board or procurement officer shall not contract for any purpose or any terms or under any conditions inconsistent with any applicable provisions of any general law. No officer or board of the office shall make any contract on behalf of the town, the execution of which shall necessarily extend beyond the years from the date thereof, unless specific authority to do so has been given by a vote of town. This section does not give boards and officials, other than the Select Board, authority to enter into contracts.
We've been stumbling with this every now and then, where department heads have signed contracts in good faith, thinking that they have the authority to do it. And now the auditors have pointed out to us, no, that's not the way this should work. Should we send a memo to all the department heads advising them of this? And should we authorize the town administrator, as the procurement officer, to be allowed to sign contracts up to a given amount of money? Those are the two questions. I think the first one is, yes, we send a memo out to all department heads, putting them on notice, making them aware.
Yeah, I think that might be an idea, something to send out to notify them that they should.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not looking at a threatening letter, just, hey, it's been brought to our attention that you don't have the authority to do this.
So you're talking about the police, the fire,
All of them.
every department. Isn't it $2,500? Well, that's for bids, to solicit bids.
Yeah,
of a
this is
certain
con-
amount.
this-
This is just contracts, yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, but I kind of think that department heads are smart enough to know if a contract would be in their budget, if they could do that.
They have no legal authority to sign them, is the problem, Jackie, and they're signing them anyway. And so what's happening is a department head, in good faith, as Charlie said, is entering into a contract with a third-party entity, thus assuming by the entity to bind the town to whatever they've contracted for, and the Select Board has not agreed to enter into that contract.
And this is happening quite often?
The auditors caught it on one occasion. I suspect there's been others. We didn't want to ferret out errors in the past. We're trying to go forward with this. I know about the one that happened in the past, and to be honest with you, everybody was involved with it, and nobody picked up on it. It wasn't done by any type of an intentional malicious act or anything like that. It was just simply, nobody realized. Because let's face it, no matter what you do here is always...
Yeah, I think if you mention to the department heads that it was picked up in an audit, and we have to be cautious around this, and this is the legal way to do it, I think that should be no problem.
So, do I hear a motion to instruct Heather to send a memo out to the department heads advising them of this?
So moved.
Yeah, I'll second it.
Everybody in
And I would
favor?
like to, state that it was picked up in an audit, and
Oh, yeah,
where
yeah,
it came
this
from.
is
And
not
just
like-
want to alleviate, not getting into any legal issues in the future.
Now comes this problem. We only meet twice a month. Some of these contracts for some of these departments need to be signed a lot more efficiently. I don't know if we can legally do this, but if the procurement officer is the procurement officer, then that would mean that the town administrator can sign these. But what's the threshold? I think we should have a threshold.
Well, why wouldn't it be like the chair?
Because the chair is nothing more than a figurehead that collates the meeting. Doesn't have any
Or a
legal,
select board member? I mean,
they don't have the legal authority, only the board has the authority. But the-
so,
But the procurement officer does under the law.
yeah, okay, I'm just asking questions.
No, and I'm not trying to give you a hard time.
Yeah.
I just know that I have one vote on this group. I'm not in charge of anything other than being the one that's the voice.
So the town administrator is the procurement officer?
Right.
And usually, what is the dollar amount?
I don't know. That's the problem.
Well, shouldn't we review the contract anyways?
Oh, absolutely.
Right,
I
so,
think,
so it's going to be, it'll come across our desk, and
but it'll be after the fact.
why can't it be
Oh,
before?
yeah.
Why can't we look at it before when it's due? Why we can't schedule them so that we'll be
I'm ju-
here
I'm
to
just
sign
saying that
those
sometimes
contracts?
a contract has to be signed and executed before the board meets.
Absolutely has to, I mean, we can't
Like, give
bring it
us an
to
example,
the,
like what? I mean, what would be that dire? I'm just curious.
We're getting grants relative to a program that the state needs the signatures that we hired a contractor.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be,
No, and I'm not trying to be evasive. I don't have anything nailed down. Heather, am I wrong in this? Are you thinking something else here?
I think it's perfectly fine for the select board to review the contracts, and even, one of the things town council had said was even if the select board doesn't necessarily sign the contract at the meeting, because maybe they don't have all the documents, maybe it's not ready, they can vote to authorize the chair at that point to sign the
Well, you're
contract
just
when it's
sticking it
completed.
back to me.
yeah.
but-
No,
it has
see,
to-
but it's no different than when we talked about the last meeting, the photocopier. The board approved it, but then we got the contract a few days later and Charlie signed it. But the
Right.
board had already seen everything they
Correct.
needed and already approved. It was just a matter of authorizing, we probably could have gone one step further and had the board say, okay, not only do we vote to sign this, but we vote to have Charlie sign it as the chair because we won't all be there when it comes through.
right, I've seen the
But-
chair sign a lot of
I think it also will just encourage people to get things done sooner so that people don't continue doing last minute. I don't disagree that sometimes every now and then emergencies come up. If it's a procurement issue, I'm authorized by the law if I have to sign it. So, we won't stop the course of business or something emergency coming through. But I'm more preferable to having the select board, I think, see things because that way you guys know what you're on the hook for.
Right.
I've been
Yes,
fine, then we
thank
don't
you.
do anything.
And if it's an emergency, have a meeting in 2 days. I mean,
Right, we'll come in. But I've seen the chair sign a lot of things,
Okay.
yeah.
yeah, once
Pen out,
I don't want to
Charlie.
get
the board
We're going
approves
to
it.
review it.
Okay. Then there's nothing to be said with this. I mean, basically, we're sending out the memo, and the rest of it just is a matter of course.
Sounds good.
All right, so the next thing we're into is appointments.
No, you're missing G.
I'm missing G. What is G?
Oh, G is the last one you asked me to have the other day,
Oh.
Charlie.
That's,
Discussion of the property that the town cares for.
you don't have.
Oh, no.
He doesn't have my town government printout.
You see, this is part of the problem of why we want to do this on a Wednesday, so that when I come in here on a Tuesday, I have what's, I'm only the chair, why would I have the current copy? So the other article is town property that we care for. I'm guessing this relates to the church, am I correct?
Charlie, you were the one who asked me to put this on, but I
know,
believe
I'm
yes.
getting- I'm
Charlie's
getting
the same
senior
time
here,
we-
excuse me, sir, give me a minute here.
Yep, not a problem.
Okay, so that was that email that came from Dan Pellegrini?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. Just let me catch up.
That's fine, that's fine, I put the clutch in. So, just a concern, I mean, I haven't been in a lot of town meetings, and this meeting was dominated with financial discussions opposed to what I thought the government should be doing, which is helping our community be better and people be better, but so it is the way it is. Where I get concerned is, as an individual with 4 children in town who works their butt off every day to pay their bills and balance their budget, I cut back where I can to make my numbers hit and make things work. And when I was driving down the road the other day, I noticed Randall and his crew filling in potholes in the church parking lot when I live on a road that is poor condition at best. And my question comes back as to how many of these properties are we doing around town, i.e. roads that aren't picked up as public roads, are we plowing and maintaining? And how many private properties are we maintaining with town resources? And then I would challenge the board to come back with why are we doing that when we're struggling to find money to pay firefighters, to protect our citizens and pave our own roads. So that was my concern.
Okay. Does the board wish to address this, or do you want to table this until we get some research to be able to answer this more credibly?
Yes, I prefer to do that, table.
Yeah, I prefer, is that a motion? I would like to look into this, I have no information.
Okay, so we'll put it on for the next selectmen's meeting?
Sure.
Yes.
And one other thing, on the roads, I heard it was Bobcat Hollow and Cottage Ave as a couple roads that were plowed that are not public roads, that are maintained.
Okay.
I haven't done much more research, so that's why I'm appealing back to the board to ask you guys to look into it. The response I got from Randall was very upstanding. It said it's always been done that way, that's why it's continued to be done that way. But again, times change, things change, and if we're not making enough money to pay for our basic services of our citizens, we should be cutting out some of the extras.
I don't disagree with you, sir, but again,
I understand. You gotta
like
do your
we just
research.
discussed, it's like, people walk in, they drop it in front of you, and it's like, okay.
No, I appreciate it, and that's why I was giving you the Bobcat
Yeah.
Hollow and the Cottage Ave and, the church, and I don't know of any others.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anything else on the agenda I should know about?
H? I don't think we have an H.
You don't have an H? You're scaring me, you two.
Girls
It's a bad team I'm working with. All right, so personnel. Personnel change forms, we have a new dispatcher, Nathan Scruff.
Joseph Nathan or Nathan Joseph?
Nathan Joseph, I got that right, but the enunciation of the last word is beyond me, the name. Anyways, Personnel Board has approved it, so has Finance, so has the Police Chief. Do I hear a motion to change to change this and go forward?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And I take it I have to sign these.
Yes. Yes. Yep. Get your pen out.
And I'm telling you, the abuse around this place is like, who would believe? I see here, see email attached for vacation payout. that I don't have. This is very professionally done. What do you think, Jim?
They want to use more resources.
Okay,
Didn't we buy a new copier?
we didn't get it yet. Separation forms need to be put into SB meeting to approve vacation payout for 2 weeks, 75 hours. Totals $1,122. That was for the employee we lost?
That's for Jennifer Day, who's left us
Oh.
to take a job elsewhere.
Move, do we approve it?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So moved. Year-end carryovers we've done,
We don't have any yet.
okay? Afraid to flip the page because I don't know what else I didn't get. Licenses, application for one-day beer and wine alcohol license at Conan Park for Saturday, June 25th, for 2 to 7 p.m. for a graduation party. Note here says all paperwork is in order. Another one of those names, I wish it was a Mark McVlavinsky, Maclavicek. Paperwork's in order, all in favor of approving this?
This is a stupid question. Town resident?
Look in the application,
Yeah,
next page.
Oh, this one. Just,
They may or may not be.
All I can tell you is,
sorry, yeah,
I don't recognize the name.
yeah, I'm not gonna try to. So you just say,
Yeah,
Mark V.
Mark V. All those in favor?
Yeah, I make a motion to approve it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. No contracts, bill warrants. Jim, you were very good with this. We'll let you do it
Oh,
this time.
boy,
Yes.
thanks.
It's on the sticky note.
Just read the sticky note? Is it-
Just read the sticky note, that's all you gotta do.
PD 16-47A, $140,364.96. P 16-49, $245,740.60.
Motion to accept, or to pay? Accept, I guess would be the word.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved.
That's good. We don't have to sign here. Do I have to sign this? Everything else sign here, or?
Yes.
Right here?
You sign there, and you shouldn't have to sign that.
Second page.
Flip it over.
This page here.
No,
This,
maybe behind
oh, the
that
second
one.
page of this one.
Yeah.
Got it. There we go.
You notified the police chief?
He asked if you still want him.
Well, we haven't fired him, if that's what he's asking.
Okay.
And who's to sign this? Jim, can you sign this too, please? Rachel.
We got to sign those too.
All right, where do you want it signed in this one?
Just on the bottom around my name there.
Heather, these are all
Right
signed.
on the front page here?
Yes.
Yep.
It says select board, so just,
Yep.
yeah, we usually just sign around that line.
Yeah.
On your left-hand side, yeah.
There you go.
It's a good thing there's three of us here. I need to sign those, Jackie.
Oh, here you go.
Okay, I take it the minutes are not ready. Our calendar shows the Board of Selectmen's meeting is June 14th, and there's a meeting relative to, Heather, what was that?
Safe routes to school
Safe Routes to
taking.
School, that's the 21st. We haven't picked a day in July to meet, because there's only 3 of us here. Do you want to pick that date on the 14th
Oh, wait. This is that.
for July?
Yeah, it might make sense because there's a lot of vacations going on in July.
Yes.
So I think that's a good idea, Charlie.
All right. Joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen and Planning Board, that's still in the works. So now we go into executive session. So I move that we have a 5-minute recess.
Yes.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-minute recess.
we have to do a roll call?
going into
Not for- Well, yeah, but we'll do the roll call when we go.
But you don't need to, you're not coming back and open, so you can take it back and
All right. You can close out, Paul, we're done.